Hi everyone, and welcome back to Movies Recap. In this video, I will summarize one of the true story films from 2018 dubbed Girl in the Bunker. Before we get to the storyline, don't forget to like and subscribe for more film recaps and have a great day. On September 6, 2006, a 14-year-old girl named Elizabeth Schoaf was kidnapped by a man acting as police officer named Vincent Fillion. The tragic circumstances in Elizabeth's life were later made into a film. At the start of the video, Elizabeth is in the middle of a class session with her students. Shortly after, a man comes up to her classroom. He is observed having a serious chat with their teacher, who then calls one of her female friends, Lucy Jennings, to come pick up her belongings and follows the man out of the classroom. On their drive home from school, Elizabeth chats about Lucy's previous episode with Amanda, her best friend. Amanda doesn't grasp what is going on either. She claims that Lucy's mother is very odd also. Plus, she heard the police came to their residence a few days before. When Elizabeth arrives home, she will call her mother, Madeline, to let her know that she and her younger brother Bobby are already home. In the middle of the night, Elizabeth's complete family will spend their spare time together. But not far from their residence, there is a weird man excavating in the earth. The following morning, Elizabeth's family is busy with their normal activities. It all begins with his father, Don, leaving the house and getting picked up by a friend to go hunting. Following that, Elizabeth are dispatched by Madeline to the bus stop, where she will catch her school bus and Bobby immediately to his school. Elizabeth, who is in a rush, doesn't see that her mascara has fallen from her bag. While on their trip, Elizabeth requests Madeline's permission to remain at Amanda's place on Saturday. Her mother allows it as long as Elizabeth has also obtained permission from Amanda's mother. Elizabeth then remembers that she has forgotten her mascara in the room and asks Madeline to take her back to the house. But her mother doesn't want to because she is already late for work. Elizabeth and her mother then have an argument that makes her mother angry and informs Elizabeth that she should not return home if she is unable to modify her attitude. Elizabeth feels offended by her mother's word and she simply agrees with her mother's advice. During class, Elizabeth's boyfriend Case gives her a note inquiring about their plans to meet on Saturday. After school, Case follows Elizabeth and Amanda to go home together. As they are stepping off the school bus, Case takes out his marijuana and lights it on fire before smoking it. He gives it to Elizabeth, but Elizabeth refuses while Amanda also joins him in smoking it. Not long later, Case is picked up by an automobile. He is scared that his parents will discover out, so he put the unlawful object in Elizabeth's suitcase with the excuse of leaving it until Saturday. Before Case departs Elizabeth, he offers her a ride, but Elizabeth rejects since she prefers to walk to her house, which is not too far away. As she comes close to her house, a man with glasses suddenly appears out of the yard and calls her out. He claims to be a police officer in the region and has detained her younger brother. Elizabeth then approaches him, although she is a little cautious at first. After Elizabeth approaches him, the man instantly ties her hands and accuses her of having marijuana plants in her backyard. Elizabeth tries to explain that they have nothing to do with anything, but he instead places a bomb around her neck and informs her that it will explode if she tries to leave or unlock it. After that, he immediately pulls her away from there to meet her younger brother. In order for Elizabeth to be safe, she had to just obey the police's directions. Meanwhile, in her home, Bobby picks up the phone from Madeline. He then informs Madeline that his sister still hasn't come home yet, prompting his mother to fear Elizabeth is running late that day. Not long later, Madeline phones Bobby again for an update from Elizabeth. After learning that her daughter has not yet arrived home, Madeline urges her son to hunt for his sister at the end of the road where her bus dropped her off. In the meantime, Madeline tries to reach Amanda to inquire about Elizabeth's whereabouts. Meanwhile, in the woods, Elizabeth keeps wondering why she is being transported so far away. The man eventually admits that he kidnapped her and threatens to shoot her if she attempts to leave. Elizabeth is taken aback and yells out in fright because the man is not a police officer either. After traveling far enough, the abductor orders her to enter his underground hiding bunker. Inside the bunker, she is getting more and more afraid, and she begs the abductor not to kill her. As it is getting late, Madeline begins to fear and keeps looking for her daughter. Along the route to her house, she meets with Amanda and her mother, who tells her to report it to the police as soon as possible. Madeline then calls the police in the hopes that they can help her in searching down her daughter. An hour later, Don returns home from his hunting activities. Madeline is having more worried, and she notifies Don that Elizabeth has not returned home yet, but Don tries to soothe his wife by telling her that Elizabeth would be home. Soon later, 2 police officers arrive at their house and start a search in the woods outside Elizabeth's house, but the dark surrounding hinders them from finding any evidence. After that, they ask Madeline some questions regarding their behavior or incidents that occurred prior to Elizabeth's abduction. Madeline informs them that she had a disagreement with Elizabeth earlier in the morning. Therefore, the authorities suspect that Elizabeth purposefully does not come home because of their recent disagreement and is instead staying at her friend's place. but Madeline maintains that her daughter will not go that far. The police officers are still skeptical of Elizabeth's mother's statements and encourage her to contact them if she has not come home after a few days. Meanwhile, Elizabeth, who has been held hostage underground, undergoes sexual atrocities from the kidnapper. She can only cry in fear at this point without being able to put up a fight. At this juncture, the kidnapper begins to grow annoyed by her cries and threatens to kill her if she wishes to leave. He tells that the hideout has been loaded with traps, so it is difficult for her to escape. Elizabeth then knows that this strange guy name is Vincent. While watching the TV, Vincent reassures her that no one is hunting for her because there hasn't been any news regarding her absence. Meanwhile, in her residence, the two cops who had previously visited them return to meet Elizabeth's parents once more. At this time, Madeline continues to assert that her daughter will not simply depart, while giving a number of reasons, including the fact that her vital items are still in her room. She urges the authorities to act promptly to find her daughter. The two police officers then submit the case of Elizabeth's disappearance to Sheriff Thompson. Thompson, who heard it, says that the first 48 hours following the loss are the most essential time and rebukes their delayed measures. The third day, Elizabeth, who is continually compelled to please Vincent's libido, tries to overcome her concerns by imagining her good days at school with Case. Not long after, they hear the voices of Don and his companions who are hunting for Elizabeth's whereabouts, but they find no sign that his daughter is immediately beneath them. Vincent put his gun to Elizabeth's head so she doesn't make a sound. Elizabeth is forced to keep back her emotions, thinking about how close she is to her father at that time, but she can't do anything about it. After a few days have passed, the media starts reporting about Elizabeth's absence. Her sentiments are split between sadness and emotion, especially when her mother speaks and says how much they love her and wish her well as the hope that she will come home soon. It's now the fourth day where she begins to think of running away from there. But she realizes that she cannot go too soon and has to be careful since her life will be at jeopardy. She then proceeds to try to get closer to Vincent by talking to him and responding to all his statements. She pretends as if she agreed with what the kidnapper stated. It is at this point that Elizabeth realizes the reason Vincent built the hideout and kidnapped her. Actually, Vincent was intending to live there with his wife, whom he named Peanut. According to Vincent, he was betrayed by Peanut, who accused him of raping her and then reported it to the police, causing him to hide alone in that spot. As a result, Vincent then abandoned his plan to bring Peanut to live with him there because the authorities had removed her away from the area. In the end, he planned to replace Peanut with someone else, and unfortunately, Elizabeth managed to be in the wrong location at the wrong time on the day she was kidnapped. The fourth day has passed. While Vincent is sleeping, Elizabeth tries to reach for his gun but can't do so because her neck has been shackled. Not long after, Vincent awakens and they can hear the sound of helicopters being sent to seek for Elizabeth. Vincent utilizes aluminum foil to conceal heat detection from infrared sensors. Elizabeth then uses this occasion to try to get closer to Vincent again. She hopes that Vincent would believe her deception of appearing to love him. As a result, she is progressively able to locate a vulnerability in Vincent and use it in order to escape. Vincent ultimately believes in her ruse and releases the cuffs that has been tied to her neck. Elizabeth is now growing closer to Vincent, where she is even allowed to try to shoot with his gun. In truth, this gun is not like a real gun, but it still can kill in short distance. Vincent is impressed to see that Elizabeth can wield the gun well and master it quickly. Later that night, Vincent binds her hands and then brings her to pick up a food that has been left in an old automobile by someone. They then fill the jerry cans with river water. After that, Vincent suddenly hears the sound of a helicopter and then hurriedly takes Elizabeth to dashes back to his hiding position on their fleet. Elizabeth purposefully leaves one of her shoes in the hopes that anyone searching for her may come across traces of her presence. It's already the seventh day. As Vincent is resting, Elizabeth begins to put her plans back into action. She tries to send a message to her mother using Vincent's cell phone, but sadly the message can't be transmitted because there is no service underneath. Elizabeth tries to get the cell phone out of the underground entrance. Luckily, the message is effectively conveyed. She then swiftly deletes the message from Vincent's cell phone so she wouldn't be caught. It doesn't stop there. While Vincent is still sleeping, Elizabeth tries to steal his gun to shoot Vincent on his head. But when she pulls the trigger, the pistol doesn't shoot any bullets at all. This makes her feel even more worried as she realizes her ideas are not going as she has intended. Meanwhile, Sheriff Thompson assures Elizabeth's parents that the hunt will shortly be ended as Elizabeth may not be in their region longer. They've covered over 20 sq mi in a week and found no trace or hint of it on the 8th day. When Madeline checks her cell phone in the morning, she is surprised as she receives a message from Elizabeth. Madeline feels relieved and so sure that Elizabeth is still alive. Dawn encourages Madeline not to phone the number immediately, and they will call the police first. But the two cops feel the message is merely a hoax and allow Madeline to contact the number. Fortunately, their leader appears at the appropriate time and stops Madeline from contacting the number because it would be highly harmful for Elizabeth. On the 9th day, the police are able to trace down the owner of the phone from the phone provider. It is determined that the phone is registered to a woman named Catherine Heaths around 3 weeks ago, and the police go straight up to Catherine's residence. As they get at her residence, one of the policemen immediately remembers that he had been there before he handled a sexual harassment case committed a year ago involving Catherine's boyfriend, Vincent Phillip, but they never met the suspect. They begin to interrogate Catherine, but she merely says that she hasn't seen her boyfriend over a year. Not long after, they uncover a subterranean area both within and outside Catherine's house. This is when they conclude that their suspect this time is a tough digger, which explains why they were unable to find him. The cops are also dubious of Catherine's allegation as she hasn't seen Vincent in over a year. Thompson explains that Elizabeth's mother received the message from a cell phone belonging to Catherine's name. Thompson also inquires as to how Vincent got hold of Catherine's phone, which was only bought 3 weeks ago. He then proceeds to warn Catherine. If Vincent kills Elizabeth and Catherine mislead them, she would accomplice to murder. In the end, Catherine points out the area where she distributes meals whenever Vincent requests for it. Thompson then instructs his squad to return to the forest around the spot, since Vincent got to be in walking distance to take the food. In addition, he intends to utilize the media to expose Vincent's identity in order to pull him out of hiding. This strategy is incredibly risky, but the sheriff knows that Vincent is a coward and will run away again as he did before. Vincent, on the other hand, begins to fear when he sees his name on the news, prompting him to suspect Elizabeth. Vincent then checks his cell phone, but he doesn't locate any message from his phone. Elizabeth tries to convince Vincent that she loves him and wants to stay with him no matter what happens. She also warns that if the authorities find them together, they will merely put Vincent in jail. Elizabeth promises Vincent that he must leave now and that she will soon follow him wherever he goes. It is at this time that Elizabeth eventually finds out that Peanut referenced by Vincent earlier is actually Lucy Jennings, her classmate at the beginning of the film. Moreover, the woman who delivers the dinner is Catherine, his girlfriend and also the mother of Lucy. In fact, Vincent has fallen in love with Catherine's daughter a long time ago and intended to marry her. After all of his confessions, he ultimately agrees with Elizabeth's opinion. He then prepares to leave her alone after she promised him to stay in the bunker, and she will wait for Vincent to pick her up and marry her as soon as it is safe. The 10th day, a day after Vincent left, Elizabeth, who has been waiting in the bunker, finally musters the guts to come out. In actuality, she has been tricked into believing there are countless hidden traps and explosions outside. She hopes that someone will hear her pleas and come to save her. Fortunately, Sheriff Thompson and his staff are wandering through the adjacent woods at the moment. As the sheriff hears her voice, he instantly rushes over to her. She is then escorted to the hospital by the police. Dawn, Madeline, and Bobby arrive at the hospital shortly after, when they are finally reunited with Elizabeth. At the end of the video, we are told that Vincent Phillip was found guilty of various offenses and sentenced to prison for 421 years. Okay, people, that's all the recap for Lady in the Bunker 2018. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more amazing content, turn on notifications to stay updated, and thanks for your support.